We want to level the playing field for all human aspiration. Bridging the digital divide is step one to achieve that. And of all the things that we could make abundant in our life, I think making connectivity abundant is the easiest of the problems.
Welcome to episode 351 of the Community Broadband Bits podcast from the Institute for Local Self-Reliance. I'm Lisa Gonzalez. It's that time of year again, spring, and Chris is off at the Broadband Community Summit in Austin, Texas. In addition to heading up panel discussions and sharing information about publicly owned broadband, he's interviewing people like this week's guest, entrepreneur Isfandiyar Shaheen, also known as Asfi. The title of the summit this year is Fiber, Putting Your Gigs to Work, and Asfi is an expert on how fiber in a community perpetuates spillover benefits. One of his goals is to step out of the box to use those benefits as a method to bring affordable connectivity to people all over the globe. Asfi discusses some of the ways he plans to do that, which include, in his words, putting fiber to better use. Asfi has become a whiz at discovering and documenting methods in which communities use fiber and finding a way to focus on those unexpected benefits for expanded use. His visionary outlook to connectivity is the type of approach that we need to get everyone online, regardless of income level. We want to thank Asfi for using his birthday to promote ILSR and hold a Facebook fundraiser. We'll have a link in the show notes. Happy birthday, Asfi. Now on with the interview.
Welcome to another episode of the Community Broadband Bits podcast. I'm Christopher Mitchell with the Institute for Local Self-Reliance. This time of year, I'm usually down in Austin, Texas for the Broadband Community Summit. That's where I am right now. I have my first interview from the summit with Asfi. Asfi is someone that everyone knows by the name Asfi. So let me just ask you to introduce yourself quickly.
Sure. Thank you, Chris. It's a pleasure to be here. I've I think listened to more of your podcasts than anyone that I've come across. I'm founder and CEO of Net Equity. I think I can be best described as an entrepreneur in residence at Facebook. But what that means is I've got a startup. I've signed a contract with Facebook, which helps me get access to their people and some key technologies. My plan is deploying fiber in partnership with utilities in other parts of the world, particularly North America. I'm from Pakistan, and Pakistan's a very key market for me where I'm currently focusing.
And in particular, you want to do this using creative methods. I mean, you're looking at methods that really focus on the spillover benefits and trying to quantify the benefits that aren't often quantified around fiber networks. That's why I wanted to have you on, and also because you ask some of the best questions of anyone that I've met.
That's very nice of you to say. What's my why behind why I migrated, why this whole thing is, there's been this question that how do I find a way to make internet access affordable for the poorest person alive? And let's start with the poorest person in Pakistan. For me, I've had some people in my mind who are like my archetype about okay, I need to make internet access affordable for these people because internet access changed my life in a big way. And I just know if this becomes available, this is going to be quite powerful. So the thought has been that, okay, if we want to make it affordable for the poorest person, we've got to find other uses for internet connectivity. And particularly like the other big uses are around making electric utilities more efficient, making agriculture, making lands more efficient, making public spaces safer, even some of these applications in telehealth services. Because if when it comes down to it, we're looking at ways to put data to better use. And fiber gives you access to abundant bandwidth through which you can find more ways to finance fiber without just relying on charging humans. So that's kind of the broad thinking behind the work that I do.
And I know that you've been collecting examples of this. As you and I were just talking a few minutes ago, it made me think that as you've been listening to these podcasts, you've actually retained a lot more than I have, because you were noting, in particular, the interview I did with Emmett, Idaho, and some of the benefits that they're seeing from having networks that go well beyond the dollars and cents. And so maybe if you just remind us what you heard in that show that you found really interesting.
Yeah, well, first of all, most of your shows I've just gathered so much from, but let me just talk about two of them. One is in Ammon, and one is in Emmett, and it's kind of cool that they're both in Idaho.
Right.
Ammon's example was the public safety application, which was, if a gunshot is fired in a school, A software-defined network configures a high-capacity connection, which gives law enforcement eyes on the shooter in 3 seconds. This is insanely valuable. In Emmett, which I found a bit more interesting because it's an even smaller town with 7,000 people.
And nobody has to get shot.
And in Emmett, I think the two killer applications that I thought were very cool were automatically locking toilets and reducing the labor overheads that are associated.
Right, so like in a public park, at a certain time of the evening when the park is closed, they can lock the toilets without having to send a person there.
The guy you interviewed on the Emmett show, he, I think, did a really good job explaining how fiber is an enabling technology. Because once you get fiber, your public Wi-Fi hotspots start working a lot better because you've got good backhaul. Once your public Wi-Fi hotspots start working better, now you've got, I'll take it to you to slightly a bit of a meta level, right? Like, I mean, of the 5 human senses, sight is the most developed. Yeah? And we can see into the depths of the universe. We can see into the depths of a blood sample.
Right, and that's why television news is killing the nation and possibly the world. But yes, I agree with you. Sight is one of our most important senses and,
right.
and immediate and everything, yeah.
And once you get fiber out there and you've got the ability to see things that previously you could not see, there is value in that. And there is immense value in not just seeing things, but paying attention to those things that require intervention. And this is where, at least like, I see a really great intersection between fiber, between hyperspectral imaging, and between machine learning.
And hyperspectral imaging is I think I know what it is, but it's basically looking at other wavelengths, so you could see like infrared and
basically,
things like that.
Our eyes can only see 3 wavelengths, but the electromagnetic spectrum is many more wavelengths, right? If I had hyperspectral imaging camera, I could see the heat signatures that your body was putting out, right? So if you think about the ability to, let's say, see a machine and see if a machine is overheating, you can actually start doing better predictive maintenance. You can also see photosynthesis. So if you can start seeing where a certain plant is performing better, you can start using algorithms to figure out why are these plants performing better.
Right. I think we see water stress, don't we? And in terms of drought conditions, we can see it in the hyperspectral imaging before we would see it with our own eyes or where other tests might recognize it.
Spot on, man. And if you think about what we're talking about, we haven't so far talked about charging people for voice and data. I mean, like another like meta data or like high level data I want to throw out is why agriculture and I would say rural has become so important for me is of the 4 billion unconnected, 75% live in 25 countries. These 25 countries have 2 things in common. High agriculture to GDP, high labor force participation rate in agriculture, and high electric line losses in their electric utilities. So for me, these are like 2 areas where there is a bunch of value getting wasted. And my thought has been, if we can limit waste, what if we can finance fiber infrastructure by limiting waste? If we can do that, our ability to make broadband available at ultra low costs becomes feasible.
And I like to phrase it this way because it's really provocative, and I think it's worth thinking about this way. You can finance broadband by lowering the cost of electricity to consumers.
Yeah.
And so everyone really benefits because you're making the system more efficient. You don't have to raise the cost, but the savings, because the electric systems are phenomenally expensive.
Yeah.
People have no appreciation of this. I mean, if you look at EPB, the investment they made in fiber is nothing compared to the investment they've made in electronics.
Spot on.
For the electric grid. And so if you can avoid the cost of power plants, I mean, you're talking about like $100 million, $1 billion investments. You avoid a few of those, you can finance a heck of a lot of fiber.
Dude, it's insane. Like, honestly, like ultra high transmission lines, they cost about $1,000 a meter. If you do an expensive, we were talking about this yesterday, even your super expensive underground build is what, $70, $80 a meter, which I think is prohibitively expensive. I am thinking more like $8 to $10 a meter. But like, yeah, there's a 10x differential in some of the costs related to, like, I met this company, Fortum, Canadian power company. They're like connecting the First Nations in Canada for the first time, doing a $1.8 billion project. And I helped them run numbers. It would cost them $25 million to also make fiber available. I mean, I don't know if they will do it or not, but like that's the quantum of differential. Fiber can make utilities efficient. It's a well-proven case. I just think that what needs more work, and this is where I pay attention to, is turning those savings into bankable contracts. Because bankability means, you can write a contract that a capital provider can get behind. And that is like a bit of unlocking that's still required.
Right. One of the challenges, I think, is humans, in my experience, have trouble dealing with avoided costs. And so do you have a sense of how you're going to approach people to make this case as you're collecting this data?
Yeah. So the thing with electric utilities is I like to think of cash flows as think of that like a waterfall. There is water already falling. And the way I generally think about the economy is I need to take a falling stream of water and I need to redirect it somewhere else. Yeah, that's the mental model that I have.
Okay.
So the idea with the utility is to say, hey, utility, you are already spending X dollars a year on OPEX and CAPEX. Can we agree to sign a contract which says as soon as I deliver you the following services, which are going to be specifically fiber connectivity into your substations, fiber connectivity between your head office and your regional office. As soon as that happens, you agree to divert these existing dollars which you are already spending against these headers towards my company. If you can do that, then against that promise, I can raise long-term contracts. Why does this matter? This matters for a couple of reasons. Because we want to design contracts that don't require board approval, that don't require regulatory approval, that can be constructed using existing cash flows that are already going out. You are spot on in saying that we are not good at cost avoidance, but in that also lies an opportunity. And the opportunity is to say, take a look at the existing waterfalls and tell people, hey, I just want to divert the waterfall. Your life won't change. In fact, you will get a better product. Instead of relying on landlines that are running on a copper infrastructure, we will give you video conferencing that's going to be amazing, so that can help you sort of stay in touch with your workforce that's distributed.
Right. Now, remind me, you have a background in telecom. You built a tower company, is that right?
That's right.
How did that work?
I was a private equity fund manager in Pakistan, and we were trying to make this private equity fund work, and it wasn't working for a bunch of reasons. But one business that really stood out was cellular tower sharing. And that's because whenever we would travel, we would see telecom companies had built 4 to 5 towers right next to each other. And most of these towers were empty. They were big empty towers. And so, it's a very tried and tested business model where you buy a set of towers from one operator and then you enable other operators to share that infrastructure. So that is the business that actually got me interested in infrastructure sharing as a concept. And it also started opening up questions about, well, if so much infrastructure already exists, can we not lower the cost of connectivity through infrastructure sharing? So, that's what got me interested. I was one of the first financiers of this company. I was on their board. I was not a founder, but I was a very early stage investor and worked very closely with the founder to grow this company from 29 towers to several thousand towers.
So let me ask you a question, because I've traveled around the world a bit, but I have not been to anywhere near Pakistan.
Yeah.
And my imagination as someone who's not been there is that people live a relatively low-tech life, particularly in areas outside of the cities. You want to connect them. And so paint me a picture of what life is like, because, you know what stereotypes are like. But I'm curious what life is really like and how broadband will change that.
People love data, man. Look, Pakistan is 193 million people. Pakistan has 75 million smartphones. That's a lot of smartphones.
Yes.
Right? Instead of painting a picture for Pakistan, I'll give you some real data from India. Because for a very long time, the stereotypes that you're talking about also existed with people like me. We are city folk, right? So we think, oh, what will poor people do with all this data? Mm-hmm. Reliance Jio is a very interesting Indian mobile operator that basically built a fiber-only network, or they built a very vast fiber network, and they built a data-only network. So they said, we will do voice through data, and essentially they built a big data network in India. For the first 6 months of their launch, they made data free. In that free period, their average consumer was guzzling about 26 to 30 gigs a month.
Wow.
Right? Yeah. But why? In Reliance's case, they were a vertically integrated player, and they made a very affordable device. and they made bandwidth very affordable, and they made the content very relevant to the user by making it very easy for them to access things they really care about, which is cricket, Bollywood, chat, and a couple of other things on their smartphone. The point is, when floodgates of data are opened, consumers are sitting there. And currently in Pakistan, I mean, already 70 plus million smartphones exist. So for me, it's like the devices are already there, the awareness is already there, but people are just used to a pretty crappy experience because they can't really afford an always-on connection. And the connections that they do have are getting choked because we don't have a lot of fixed line infrastructure. And now we're getting backhaul constrained. And I mean, that's a whole other topic because, I mean, I also don't think the mobile integrated telecom business model is sustainable for the long term. And so this business model is having a hard time justifying to make the capital expenditures to do these upgrades. And that's where I feel like some of my people are going to get stuck unless open access fiber arrives in the country.
You actually used a word that drives me nuts, which is consumers. And the applications you noted in that example from India were definitely consumption-based.
Yeah.
What kind of production do you think will happen as people have these networks available to them?
Okay. What got me obsessed with connectivity other than my tower thing was I helped start a learning lab, a learning computer lab in a building where I was a business executive. And that's because every day I would talk a lot about the digital divide, but then I would say the digital divide exists in my office. What do I do about the digital divide that exists in my office? So anyway, I'll kind of summarize the story. We teamed up with another nonprofit that curated content and brought in learning coaches through whom we were delivering content to some of our blue-collar colleagues. The killer app or the killer application that emerged from this whole experience was when folks learned how to help their kids do math homework, they found much more willingness to engage with technology and this medium. Because for a lot of fathers, they were finding relevance once again when their kid was saying, "Hey, Dad, I am struggling to solve this math equation. How do I solve it?" The dad does not know how to solve the math equation, but the dad has now learned how to take a picture of it or how to maybe type it in a Google search engine and figure out what are the steps through which his kid can do homework. For me, that is a massive application. I have seen other examples of e-commerce. In the early days of 3G, Pakistan only launched 3G in 2014. I would often see in rural parts of Pakistan people converging around certain 3G towers. When I went closer to see what they were doing, most of these people were craftsmen trying to send pictures over WhatsApp to their customers to say, "Hey, I have made this chair, I have made this thing, is this good enough?" So the production finds a way. It's a matter of opening up this ability to communicate, and it's a matter of also ensuring that this communication is not through a walled garden, that this communication is something which is more free-flowing. It usually starts with entertainment. That is the hook that gets people started. But then after entertainment, there is usually many more forms which people start finding, because what do we want ultimately? A better life for ourselves, a better life for our kids. And that's the question that drives us, right? How do we make our lives better? How do we make our kids' life better? With the internet, you have the ability to ask questions, get answers.
Yeah, when you said entertainment, I was just thinking about, I've given a lot of thought over the years to one of the things I love about the internet, which is the ability, people have the technology and right now the authority, although Hollywood's chipping away at it at times, to create like parody videos or to create like music video syncs or take a song they like and create a music video around it. And I look at those sort of skills that those kids are building up, and I think about, I do sports photography. I work for the University of Minnesota very frequently. And 8 years ago or so, I think maybe 7 years, they had the first of like what they called Gopher Digital Productions, which was really student-based. doing a lot of like high quality HD video capture. Now there's like 50 of them, and they do all these fascinating sequence, these short videos that are right for social media. Like these are marketable skills. Those kids, I mean, they were college students. They went on then to work for the Big Ten network. So they're getting full-time jobs now off of something that they probably learned originally just using that technology that was available to them on their smartphones. That's where they got the bug. And so it's fascinating how those things can be turned into marketable skills.
Man, are you familiar with Roland Coase?
I'm not.
A big Nobel Prize winning economist came up with a theory of the firm. He asked this brilliant question.
Oh, yeah. COASE, right? Coase.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Are you familiar with that?
Vaguely.
Okay. I mean, I'll kind of very quickly summarize. He basically says firms exist because they can organize an activity that sort of minimizes transaction costs. Right? So transaction costs are a big theme in his work. And if you think about it, transaction costs are a function of communication costs. And when transaction costs fall, it allows for different types of organizations to emerge. For me, your organization is a great example of that. I think the kind of value and awareness that you've added it doesn't seem to be that you're on a very big budget, but like if I think about...
We're working toward it.
Right? When I think about like, some of the productions that you've done, that video that you made for Ammon, the podcasts that you do, I would imagine these weren't feasible 10 years ago.
Correct.
Right? But now a guy like you who is very mission aligned can create incredible impact with very little funding. And like that's inspiring for me, right? And that kind of tells me that, okay, like better connectivity, which is not in a walled garden, is going to drive down communication costs and is going to level the playing field for human aspiration. That's what's really it's about, right? Like we want to level the playing field for all human aspiration, and bridging the digital divide is step one to achieve that. And of all the things that we could make abundant in our life, from energy to like, food, I think making connectivity abundant is the easiest of the problems.
Oh, I agree.
Because of just the sheer physics of it. I'm quite pumped about like this vision to see, what people will start doing. We can't imagine. This is the other thing that kind of drives me nuts about Silicon Valley. Everyone's trying to create a human brain, right? There's an obsession to create a human brain. And I say, there are 4 billion brains out there. There are 4 billion brains out there who we don't have the means to talk to connect with, to learn from. Many of these people are facing challenges that probably they are best equipped to solve. Perhaps it's easier to give them the tools through which they can solve their problems, which will also help us. I mean, climate change is a big topic for me because it's not going to get solved without global coordination. Well, how do you achieve global coordination when half the world cannot get online? That's kind of I kind of get carried away, Chris, with my
Those are the best guests.
My wife often reminds me that, I need to remain mindful and like, kind of stay in the moment and like not just go off on a tangent, but like.
Let me ask you a question, because you've given a lot of thought. You've really observed what different folks are doing and they're building networks.
Yeah.
And like I said, every time I've talked to you, I've felt that you figure the best questions to ask. Whereas other people, just to give you an idea, a question that I really hate is like people will ask, well, how many miles of fiber do you have? And I'm kind of thinking, well, what do I care? Like, I mean, really, I'm worried about the service. I want to know about the costs and this and that.
Yeah.
I don't really care about linear miles of this fiber. So I don't think of that as a good question often.
Yeah.
What are some of the questions that you're asking that you think other people, aren't asking that they should be thinking more about?
I have an obsession with connectivity, and because I have an obsession, this is all I think about. This is all I'm dreaming about. And it's a constant. So for me, like, I have like an 8-step mental model, and it kind of goes like this. People are hungry for services. Services are hungry for infrastructure. Infrastructure is hungry for capital. Capital is hungry for cash flow predictability. Cash flow predictability is hungry for bankable contracts. Bankable contracts are hungry for aligned incentives. Aligning incentives requires trust. Trust comes from believing in the same story. The last line is from Yuval Harari, who's a historian I'm a big fan of. This is my mental model, and I kind of go up and down this mental model to say, Because for a very long time, I was just thinking about infrastructure from the perspective of, I just need to do a long-term contract. And this is kind of the problem, right? Oh, I just need to do a long-term contract. But no, but what are the services? What are the problems that we will solve when that becomes available? And I think unless you can spell out what connectivity will do for people, you're going to struggle to make it relevant. Like, and I give my wife all the credit for this, right? She forced me to think about this, that what will connectivity enable? You've seen that video from EPB, the STEM school one?
Yes, with the 4K microscope.
That's a killer video. That video now spells out that, okay, when you have fiber and you've got a microscope and kids can control it using a mouse, they can learn from a professor sitting in California 1,800 miles away. All the kids were saying 1,800 miles away. Great application. When you present this to people, it makes it clearer for them to understand, this is why it matters.
Sure.
Similarly, I mean, and then so for me, it's like it's becoming a case of, I know this is valuable. How do we communicate it? And so the questions therefore go up and down this mental model from, how do we get this thing financed? How do we tell the right story? What are the applications?
Right.
Because like, it's a complex problem, right? Like, I mean, half the world is unconnected. At least for me, it's not a matter of like, we bridge the digital divide in Pakistan, we're done. No, we've got to do it for the world because we don't have a lot of time in terms of where we are at with what we've done to our environment, what we've done to our climate. We don't have a lot of time. We need to bridge this digital divide in less than 10 years. And currently, I don't see a compelling plan that gets us there in 10 years. So at least one goal I've set for myself is, I set up my company April 2018. I'm saying April 2028. Before April 2028, we've got to get this thing done. And so there's also a bit of urgency with the obsession, hence why I keep listening to your podcasts and sometimes tracking down how your welcome note has changed. But like, yeah, I mean, but like, I think you've asked an important question. This is something I've also thought about. When does learning happen? There are certain facts you retain, you remember even after hearing about them only once, right?
Right.
And what is it about those things? And I think those...
They explain something.
Well, I think something else, right? When you are in a heightened state of curiosity, right? When you're in a heightened state of curiosity and you're really wondering, man, how does this thing work? How does this thing work? How does this thing work? You get an answer once, you remember that.
Right.
So I think for me, what's going on is I am experiencing it's been a sustained heightened state of curiosity because I spent, frankly, quite a bit of time thinking about my why. Why did I want to do this? What did I want to do? I mean, I was also sort of in a privileged position in life where I could think about these things. As soon as the clarity on the why emerged, the obsession became clearer and the learning became a lot better. I think that, so I will tie it back to the why. The why has helped create a mental model, and the mental model has helped this to continue to remain focused and find resources like you, who's like doing such an incredible job, like
my
educating
team,
people.
right.
Well, your
Yes.
team. And what is your why?
Well, my why?
Yeah.
Why
Why are you so obsessed with all of this stuff?
Well, I am. So there's a lot of podcasts I listen to, in which I've listened to every last episode.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of obsessive in me as well.
Yeah, you are obsessive. I can see one.
So I think that's what, and it's. Honestly, there's a part of me. I say this in speeches relatively frequently.
Yeah.
I am so frustrated to hear from people who think we cannot solve this problem in America, let alone in Pakistan or in Mongolia or anywhere, in South America.
Yeah.
Like, people have this sense of like, we can't solve the problem. And I've just looked back and I keep reading more about how we solved electrification in the 30s and 40s and a little bit in the 50s.
Yeah.
And I'm just stunned that in the year 2019, people think, we can't do this thing. We couldn't possibly drag a wire to every home.
Yeah.
It's, and so I just have the sense of it's my own little part of trying to help the people of the United States remember the greatness that's possible when humans actually make something a priority and do it.
Man, I couldn't agree more. I mean, this is like something I often talk to like my friends about. America is still the biggest economy in the world despite having pretty crappy broadband infrastructure. Right. Imagine what happens to this country when it does get legit broadband, because it's created a pretty cool culture. It's found a way to assimilate a bunch of people from other parts of the world. And, once it once this country gets its act together, and I think it's happening, that's the sense I get whenever I listen to your shows, that once communities around America can actually start deploying and ensuring that this critical piece of infrastructure is open access, I think some amazing years lie ahead for this economy.
I hope so.
Yeah.
So as we're wrapping up, I just wanted to go back to something and say that people are familiar with the OSI stack.
In
networking. I think we should call what you described as the OSFI stack.
I like that.
Got the OSFI stack. I think we need a nice slide that gets it down.
Sure. Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah, maybe that's a visual I need to think about. But yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you for coming on. This has been a really fun conversation.
Chris, thank you. And lastly, for any listeners, I'm doing a fundraiser for ILSR, and my birthday is in 2 days. Yeah, it's tomorrow actually. My birthday is tomorrow, and so for the first time on Facebook, I am doing a fundraiser for ILSR because I think ILSR does killer work. And so if anyone's listening, please locate me. My name is not Asfi, it's Isfandiyar Shaheen. That's how you can find me. And if you can find that fundraiser, please donate, because I think this organization can make a really big difference to the lives of the world.
We deeply appreciate you doing that. People could also find it on my Facebook page.
Oh, yeah.
I think also.
Yeah, that's actually better.
Or I believe we'll have it on the ILSR page also. So, I really appreciate you doing that.
It's a small amount where, by the way, we are already at $721. Our target is $2,000. So if anyone's tuning in, let's please get to $2,000. The fundraiser will stay on till April 13th.
Right, and we're recording this today, and it'll actually be published today, most likely, or else tomorrow, Wednesday.
We have 4 days to raise about $1,300. Let's get $2,000 into ILSR's account, people. Thank you.
Thanks, Asfi.
That was Christopher at the Broadband Community Summit in Austin talking with entrepreneur Isfandiyar Shaheen about fiber's spillover benefits and the ways that he's using them to bring affordable connectivity to some of the least connected communities. We have transcripts for this and other podcasts available at muninetworks.org/broadbandbits. Email us at podcast@muninetworks.org with your ideas for the show. Follow Chris on Twitter. His handle is @CommunityNets. Follow muninetworks.org stories on Twitter. The handle is @muninetworks. Subscribe to this podcast and the other podcasts from ILSR, Building Local Power, and the Local Energy Rules podcast. You can access them wherever you get your podcasts. You can catch the latest important research from all of our initiatives if you subscribe to our monthly newsletter at ilsr.org. And while you're there, please take a moment to donate. Your support in any amount helps keep us going. Thank you to Arnie Huseby for the song Warm Duck Shuffle, licensed through Creative Commons. And thank you for listening to episode 351 of the Community Broadband Bits podcast.